Hi friends, Josh from the Narrate team here. This weekend, our leader of Narrate Kids, Jennee Kemper, shares a part of her story and talks about religion versus relationship and judgment versus listening.
I am Jennee, and I'm really grateful to be here, and it's nice to see you, and thanks for coming out on a holiday weekend. It's really nice out there. All right. Adam asked me to speak this morning and let you know a little more about me, about who I am and why I do what I do and why I am who I am. And I'm going to let you know I'm a woman. Yeah, if you were wondering, you heard that there was a woman speaking today. I was kind of, what'd you think about that? I'm 39 and I'm a woman, and I'm married. I've been married for about 18 years, and I have 4 kids, 4 amazing kids. Yet I've had 5 pregnancies, so I had a little loss. I've got, my husband is amazing. I'm going to say amazing a lot today, and super. I like those 2 words, so you can get ready for those 2. You can do a tally. It'll be fun for you. You can see how many times I say those things. He is my best friend. He takes good care of me. We've worked really hard for our marriage, really hard. And if you're married, you understand that marriage is really hard work, but it's so worth it. It's really worth it. A little about my kids. I have an almost 17-year-old daughter named Jackie, a 15-year-old daughter, Hannah, and a 13-year-old daughter, Esther. And then we have a son. His name is Caleb, and he's 11. They're awesome, and I get to have a lot of meetings with you guys, and that's, I think, the best part of my job. I love having one-on-one meetings with people and getting to know your stories and who you are. You're amazing. You can tally that one. I like that word, like I said. Is that my earring? Probably is my earring. I'm just going to take that off right now because that'll bug you guys and me. So it was really pretty. It's turquoise. I'm going to put it here. It brought out my eyes because I'm a woman. You know, I like to accessorize. I'll take this one off too so it's not imbalanced. That'll help Jen back in the back. There you go. Okay. All right. Again, people ask me about parenting. How do you parent well? How do you deal with kids? And I want to tell you, I have no idea. We still have kids at our house. I do things wrong all the time. Make a lot of mistakes. I say I'm sorry a lot. I do things that are really weird. I'm a very awkward person. I'm neurotic, very emotional. My kids know that I'm going to do things that are really weird, but that I love them very much, no matter who they are. We got to, as a staff, go down to Denver in April, and we went to this Q conference, and it was very impactful for me. We got to see about 40 speakers. It was TED Talk style, and so each speaker got to talk about something that they were really good at, and they were experts there. We got to see this woman named Beth Nimmo, and she spoke about her daughter, Rachel Scott, whom she lost in the Columbine shooting in 1999. And this is something I've been working on with my own kids, to see them the way that she sees her daughter now after the loss of her daughter. You see, she said this statement. Go ahead and put that up. I was in the presence of greatness and I didn't know it. She didn't see her daughter as great until after she lost her. It's pretty sad. I'm looking at my kids and thinking, I want to see you as great now, not afterwards. So that's an encouragement to you guys if you have kids, and that's how we look at Narrate Kids. That's what we're trying to see. They're each so amazing, and we want to, oh yeah, by the way, tally that one. They're so amazing, and we want to look at them that way. They're great. I'm going to talk to you also more about who I am. Okay, back up. I'm really glad you can't read my mind. I'm a freak show. Totally freak show. I like to be open and transparent, but I'm really glad that you can't read my mind. I am deeply emotional. I cry a lot. I laugh uncontrollably at really inopportune times, usually not where other people would laugh, and it's weird. I also scare really easily. I'm spaz. In fact, in our office, we have this series of turns that you have to go through to get to the restroom and to the kitchen area. And usually when I'm going there, I'm deep in thought. I'm in my office. At the offices, we have our doors closed often because we're going into deep work. And so I'm thinking, and I'm there. And Josh was coming back. Josh, our student pastor, was coming back from wherever he was. And he caught me at one of these turns and scared me half to death. And I screamed, and it scared him. And apparently when I scream and get scared, I scare the other person worse than I'm getting scared. And he put down what he had in his hands, and he yelled at me. And he said, "I am not a serial killer." And I thought, okay, I need to work on how I get scared and being in the moment when I'm walking through these halls. And Adam has said the same thing to me. He's our lead pastor, and goes, "You need to really stop being so scared when you walk through these halls because it's scaring me." So working on that. Always working on things. I have an amazing group of people that I get to work with every day. Every day. Josh, Adam, Kate, Jody, Matthew McCarl, and now I've gotten to hire Alyssa McCarl as the Narrate Kids assistant that will take over when Matthew goes off to college. Amazing people. I have the best job in the world, and I really hope you feel that way about your job. I also have a really high pain tolerance, and I want to talk to you about that. In fact, 5.5 years ago, I was at my job in Houston, and it was kind of a high-stress job, and I all of a sudden got this strange lightning bolt pain in my chest, and it zoomed out my arm and down my leg and up my head. Felt like it blew the top of my head off. And then I started to shake. And somehow I got myself to the emergency room with my legs shaking on the clutch. Had my brother's car. I think I bumped it into the parking concrete thing. I did a little damage to it also. Whoops. And got admitted into the hospital. A week stay there. Through a series of tests, and then even had an out-of-body experience at that point, spinal tap, all sorts, MRI, you name it. They found all this stuff in my brain. Thought that I had brain tumors, on and on and on. Through the series of tests, discovered that I have multiple sclerosis. I even have one lesion that is in prime real estate in the back of my spinal column. So me standing up here and doing this job that I get to do is a miracle. I don't take life for granted. I don't take getting out of bed for granted. In fact, after that episode, it was an exacerbation of huge amounts. Apparently, the amount of lesions in my brain showed that I've probably been struggling with MS for since I was 20. So at this point, it would be 19 years now, and didn't know it. Makes a lot of sense looking back. After that one, it didn't end. We lived in Houston. It's very hot, it's very humid, very stressful there with 4 million people. I couldn't walk very far. After that, I couldn't care for my kids. I could no longer work. And within a few months, we were able to relocate up to here, which is where my family is. And that saved my life, really. I don't think I would have been able to keep getting better down there. So I'm very thankful for that, and slowly started to get better. Obviously, I can walk around. I'm doing well. I feel better than I have felt for 15 years right now. Actually, I'm very, very grateful. In fact, my body doing something that I love actually has given me more energy, and when you do something that you love, your body will follow suit. And it's amazing how I can kind of tell myself how to feel. And I believe that is a gift from God. So I hope that you don't take your life for granted either, and you will do the things that you love in the middle of that. So my life is all about relationships. I believe those are the most important things. I don't take those for granted. Namely, my relationship with God. And I mean that. It is a relationship. It is not a religion. Relationship with God is very important. And if we look at it as a religion, it's toxic. If we look at it as a relationship, it's life-giving. It hasn't always been this way for me because I grew up in a very religious community. Something that, if you want to hear more about that, I'll have coffee with you and we can go into more detail. But I had a checkoff list. If I didn't do things a certain way, in a certain order, according to this plan, frankly, I was going to hell. It was not a good way of growing up. So from the time I was born until I was 14, this was my way of living. And I learned this very deeply. And it's how I treated myself. I judged myself constantly. It wasn't how God was treating me. It was how I learned to treat myself and how the hierarchy of the community that I lived in treated us and taught us to be. But we left that when I was 14, and I began on my recovery status of getting out of that religion. So I have a definition. I'm going to go back to that one. Religion is toxic, and this is my definition of that. Following rules and laws to get approval and significance. And we do that, I learned to do that for myself. And because I learned to do that for myself, I was judging myself, but I also judged the living hell out of everyone else because that was my learned way of behavior. Relationship, however, is life-giving. It's one-on-one, give and take, communion with one another. So I was learning that with God, learning that with others after I got out of this very religious way of living. So I am going to introduce myself again to you. Hello, I am Jennee, and I am a recovering judgment addict. Hi. That was hard for me to say, so thanks for your feedback. Yeah. I've been recovering for a while. And this is difficult because I always do feel like I have to perform to get acceptance. And when you're laid on your back with a debilitating disease, you can't perform anymore. I learned pretty quickly that, okay, God, so now who I am is really just who I am. It's not what I do. So I've had to learn the hard way, yet it still is in my heart to judge. So I have to constantly deal with this. It's fantastic. But I'm very thankful because I get to meet with people who are amazing. And I'd love to ask you this question. What's your go-to response? What's your initial response and your emotion when someone is different than you? And why is that? See, I have a reason, right? I was born into that, and it was my learned behavior. Why is that in you when someone's different than you? Someone has a different favorite team. For instance, my husband, he is a diehard Dodger fan. He was born in LA. It goes back generations. His great-grandmas even are Dodger fans. So if there's a Giant fan around, they apparently have no ability to make a decision. They are idiots. Sorry if you are a Giants fan. So that's an initial judgment, right? So again, I'm a woman. Did you judge me when I walked on the stage? Did ya? I'm a mom. I think, oh, is she a soccer mom? Is she, there's judgments that come no matter what. When you look at someone, what's your initial judgment? What is your initial judgment when someone's a Republican if you're a Democrat? What's your initial judgment if someone is a different race than you are? If someone is a different gender than you are? If someone is a different sexual orientation than you are? If someone is a different age than you are, what's your initial judgment? Last weekend, I got to go up to Vigilante Campground. My parents and my brother and his wife were up there camping, and I got to spend a couple minutes at the creek, just looking at the creek, and I love those moments. I love just pondering, and I love rocks. Rocks are gorgeous, especially the colors, and if you're an archaeologist or a geologist, you can talk to me about the awesomeness of how these rocks became this way. But look at the cracks in that one. Look at how the colors are melded together. Look at how these rocks have a story. How they got there, how they came to be together, how the years formed them to be like that. These rocks have a story, and we all have a story, and the people that we see out in our community and in our world have a story. If we judge, our first initial reaction is to judge, then we are tearing down that ability to know the story. We don't know at what point someone comes into the stream of our life, where they're coming into our journey. We are all made in the image of God. I'm going to read Genesis 1, verses 26 says, "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our image, in our likeness.'" Then in verse 27 says, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them." I've been learning to be a student of the image of God and the character of God in people. There's a piece of him in each of us, in each country, in each gender, in each representation of his image. There's a piece of him. We have his imprint on us. It's pretty amazing. And we've got to flip our mind to think of, how is this person representing a piece of our God, instead of judging them? Because when we judge someone, it means we're putting ourselves higher. This is where the addiction piece comes in. It gives us a hit. It puts ourselves higher than them, makes us feel better, and it puts them lower. It's ugly. It's ew. All right, we're going to go into Matthew, and this is pretty awesome. Now, leading up to this passage we're going to read, Jesus was talking to his disciples and all these people that just couldn't get enough of him because he was doing a lot of miracles and they thought he was pretty cool. And he had been talking to them about not worrying, about giving their lives over to him and to God, and even looking at the birds of the air and how he would take care of them. And then he started talking about not judging. So in verse 1 of chapter 7, it says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." That sounds a lot like reaping and sowing, doesn't it? When you pour something in, that's what you get out. It's the same concept. "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye?" Sawdust and planks? What in the world? "How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye?" This is interesting. I was learning this week about how this is a use of theater that Jesus was using with his audience. This was a method of communicating with them. At this point, they actually would have been laughing with him because he was using hyperbole, a really gross out there statement of, how can you look at a speck in your brother's eye if you have a plank in your own eye? A plank would have been a big, huge piece of wood that stood out here. You couldn't even get close to your brother because this thing was, sticking out of your eye, out here, and you couldn't even get close to your brother. So they would have understood holding this big thing out there, and they would have been laughing at the story. It was this very conversational thing with them. It wasn't like, "Do not judge or you will be judged." It was conversational and fun, and he was using theater in it. And then he said, "You hypocrite," which in that original language says, "You actor." So again, the theater. "You actor, first take the plank, take this big thing out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and then turn and tear you to pieces." Okay, dogs, pearls, pigs, tearing you to pieces. What does that mean? Boy, it's getting into violence. So when we judge, it means we're trying to control somebody. It means we're trying to put them into our way of thinking, that we have a handle on what's true. I know more than you. My way of doing things is better than yours. when we do that to someone else, it actually makes that other person feel pretty gross and makes them angry, doesn't it? Have you ever had it go well when you try to tell somebody what to do? Has it gone well? It hasn't for me. You're trying to put on them your way of doing things, and it can cause violence. That's what that picture is looking like, is violence for them. Here's a quote by Dallas Willard, and I think it puts it well. It's, judging others is a deadly way in which we try to manage or control those closest to us. I can't read that tiny bit up there, good grief. Those closest to us by blaming and condemning them and by forcing upon them our wonderful solutions for their problems. Disaster awaits, greater or smaller, sooner or later. That's the truth. All right, in John, bear with me, we're going to go through this little story. John chapter 8, Jesus was speaking in the temple. All the people were gathered around him, and the teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group. Where was the man? There was a man there too. Was the woman the only one caught in adultery? I mean, for real, right? Give me a break. And said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery," so the man just gets a pass. That is so gross. Ugh. "In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now, what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. He just starts to play in the dirt. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "If any one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her." Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Have you wondered what he was writing? I wonder. Wonder if he was drawing pictures, if he was... Some people think he was writing the 10 Commandments. I doubt he was even that religious. You know, he was probably doodling. Who knows? Like, come on, guys, this is what this is about. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." So Jesus didn't condemn her. He didn't judge her there, but he called her to a better way to act. He called her to a way of following him. He didn't just say, "Don't worry about it. Go and just do your thing." He had a better way for her to live. Again, at that Q conference down in Denver, I got to hear a guy named Mark Yarhouse, and he's a psychologist at Regent University, and he studies gender identity issues, and he was really brilliant. He is a Christ follower, and he brought up some issues that were very challenging for me to deal with because, again, with my judgment addiction, I'd like to think that I have a handle on how people should be, and without knowing their stories, how can I judge, you know? He said that there are 700,000 people in America that identify as transgender, and yet churches have a really hard time talking about this issue. He's counseled many of these people in his office, and they're struggling. People are struggling, and they want to come to our loving God, and yet there's not a place. There's not a safe place. And he made this comment of, "You've met one. You've met one." We like to blanket statement people. We like to judge. Even the transgender culture, right? We've got this big thing with the Target bathrooms and all of that. We like to think every transgender person and every person that identifies with them is just like this one person that I've seen. And that's not true. One person is one person. And many times people that are in the spotlight, they're not representing a person that is dealing with an issue. We can't blanket statement a race. We can't blanket statement a gender. We can't blanket statement all men, putting the toilet paper on the wrong way. We can't blanket statement children, because they're all different, right? We can't blanket statement people, judging them as all the same. You've met one person, you've met one person. We have to be able to see people as they are made in the image of God. One by one, made in the image of God. There was also a quote that he made that said, as he was looking at people eye to eye, he would say, "It looks like I'm meeting you in chapter 7 of your life. I'd like to hear more about chapters 1 through 6. What if we had that posture of listening and asking questions? There was another woman there, and she is a Christ follower also, and yet she struggles with gender dysphoria. And what that means is she has a hard time identifying with male or female. She has an issue with that. Yet she follows Christ. She's a mom of 6, and she is married. So these are issues that are happening in our culture, you guys. I'm sure many of you know that. But we've got to be able to see people one-on-one and to be able to treat them as they are made in the image of God and not judge them, but see them. She said we have to be ambassadors of healing, compassion, love. We are human, made in the image and likeness of God. What if we have a posture of healing? What if we have a posture of listening to someone? What if we have a posture of asking questions, making a request? You see in that passage that Jesus talked about not judging others, right after that it says ask and keep on asking, seek and keep on seeking. He wasn't just talking about our relationship with God and in prayer. He was also talking about a posture with people. That's a way of not judging. That's an answer to that question. What about asking a question? What about seeking? What about it? Listening. This is a way that actually works because it draws people into the kingdom rather than into the web of our devices and plans for them. God's kingdom is huge. God's kingdom is open to everyone made in the image of God, and he pulls them up and he says, "Where are your accusers? Go and live a life free from sin." What if we decide to journey with God and with people? What if we surrender ourselves to God's care? And what if we surrender other people to God's care? Because we don't have a handle on what people should think and do and believe. And yes, we know that Jesus is the way. He is the way. He's the one way. But what if the way that they get there is a journey? And they're coming at it, they're a rock in the stream. I have to surrender them to God. Surrender them and not judge. We need to treat others as they are made in the image of God. Beautifully made. Beautifully made. You are beautifully made. Would you do something with me this week? Let's make some eye contact. Told you I'm awkward. It's good to see people. See people. When you look into their eyes, you see people. Would you try to see someone this week? Someone that you would normally slough off to the side and think, no, I'm not going to look at you. You're not somebody that I would look at. I will look at them, ask a question if you can, and smile. Treat them as they are made in the image of God, just like you are. You are, and God has made a place for you. Make a place for them. I'm going to read Psalm 139. Verse 23 and 24 says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." Let's pray. Thank you, Jesus, that we get to be yours, and that your word is living and active, and something that we can learn from, and that you are good, and that you have made us in your image. I ask that you would help us to treat others as they are made in your image too, and not be afraid of people that you made, and that we would be your children, fearfully and wonderfully made, and treat others as they are fearfully and wonderfully made. We love you, Jesus. Amen.
If you would like to engage further with Narrate Church, you can find contact information online, www.narratechurch.org. We would love to hear from you.